I'm Sofia Niazi. I am an artist and illustrator, and as part of Oomk, I run a community printing press in East London called Rabbit's Road Press. I've been invited to talk about my practice in relation to the themes of the Artists Make Change project, which explores current thinking, practice, and experiences around how, when, why, and where artists and arts organisers are working to make change. I'm going to talk about 3 projects in this presentation: Oomk Zine, DIY Cultures, and Rabbit's Road Press. Oomk, which stands for One of My Kind, is a collective publishing practice currently led by myself, Rose Nordin, and Hibba Lamara. We've been working together since 2014 to make, publish, and distribute books and printed works which arise from self-initiated projects. Oomk Zine is a very visual, handcrafted small press publication. Each issue centres around a different creative theme, with more general content exploring topics of faith, activism, and identity. When Oomk first started in 2013, I didn't really identify as an artist. I used to make comics and zines with Sabah Khan and sell them at fairs. That's where we met Rose. We were surprised to find another Muslim woman at the zine fair, having been to quite a few, and it turned out we had a lot in common. After bumping into Rose again at another zine fair, we decided to work together on a publication. Originally, it was going to be about significant Muslim women throughout history, but once we started working on it, we realised that we didn't know about history and it would take too long to find out. We decided to make a zine about women and art instead, with a focus on the work of Muslim women. Through the zine, we wanted to try and address the issue of Muslim women being spoken about so much in mainstream media but not being spoken to, or more importantly, not being able to hear each other. Tumblr was a really great place for this, but we wanted something IRL, so that it would take up some space in the world and act as an object to gather around. We wanted to make our own world in which we could decide what topics were of interest and share our art and thoughts and be creating culture instead of just consuming it. One of the things that really helped us figure out what we were doing was writing a manifesto together. It's still something we return to when we're feeling unsure about a project, and it's helped to focus and guide us. Although zine fairs were largely friendly and welcoming, they were not very racially or socially mixed, and the largely apolitical work we were seeing didn't reflect our lives or what we found most exciting about radical self-publishing. We were interested in being part of an art world which addressed real issues. Having been to art school, it didn't come as any surprise to us that we were struggling to find it. We needed for there to be more ways of developing creative practices and communities outside of formal education, because there were so many barriers to accessing it. If we had to pay £9,000 a year to go to art school, we wouldn't have done it. By this stage, we knew how to make our own publications, and there was a growing number of Black and Asian and ethnic minority artists who were making them too, and mostly distributing them online. The next step was to make our own publishing fair, where we could all gather and share our work with wider audiences. We co-curated DIY Cultures with Hamja Ahsan and Helena Wee, and ran it for 5 years. It was a one-day festival exploring the intersections between art and activism, and had over 80 exhibitors selling comics, zines, and self-published works, alongside a programme of free talks and workshops. DIY Cultures became one of the UK's largest annual independent publishing fairs. We learned a lot from it, and we're beginning to see our practice and work in a type of ecosystem. From idea to publishing to distribution, we had a clearer sense of who we were talking to, something which is difficult to gauge online. Up until this point, we all had other jobs, and were trying not to rely on the art world for our salaries. We got the odd grant here or there, but we normally committed to projects before we'd heard back from funding. This meant we only did projects that we believed in. There was always something to gain from these projects, even if it wasn't a salary. We would learn new skills, find a platform for important issues we wanted to discuss, create our own festivals, test things out, and sell or share our work. Although this approach gave us flexibility and freedom with the projects we took on, we found that whenever we did get a grant, we were able to do a lot more, to make more ambitious publications, do research, and to pay other artists well. We continued to focus on self-publishing and decided to turn our attention to education. We had run lots of one-off and drop-in workshops and realised that it was very unlikely that anyone would be able to develop a creative practice off the back of these. For us, the best thing about art school was being able to be part of a creative community and having access to equipment and technicians and support. In 2017, we were approached by Create London to be artists in residence at Old Manor Park Library in Newham. After a lot of research and discussion, we decided that we'd like to set up a community risograph printing press in the space. Risograph printing was something we were really interested in experimenting with in our own work. We loved the effect, the ethos, and the radical history associated with it, as well as the fact that it was more environmentally friendly than other printing processes. We wanted to have more control over the means of production of our self-published work, and a printing press could be a valuable community resource since there were so many applications for printing. It would be easy to make it relevant to people, and it was the missing part of our self-publishing ecosystem. Riser machines are big and expensive and very hard to get your hands on. We wanted access for ourselves and for others in similar position of wanting to print but not knowing where to start or having the freedom to experiment. Writing the Arts Council England application together helped us figure out an exact plan and programme for the space, and we were thrilled that the bid was successful. Rabbits Road Press was born. We were learning on the job and had quite a few challenges along the way. Broken machines, not knowing how to use the machines properly, this is probably what led to them breaking, and not knowing who to ask for help. But since we provided a clear, regular, and hope generous programme, we started getting regular members, and as the Rabbits Road team press grew, there was a broader knowledge base and skills base, and we were able to fix problems. I think something that informs all of our work is thinking of ourselves as the public user. What sort of offer or service would be valuable to us? What would we find helpful and useful? What type of environment do we want to work in? This way, the audience is very clear and very close to us, and we're able to design around problems that we're very familiar with. We felt at home in the space, and the creative and nurturing environment that had developed at Rabbits Road Press encouraged us to stay on and expand our programme. Whilst wanting to contribute to certain wider changes, namely pushing for greater access to art-making spaces, resources, and equipment, especially for marginalised people, our projects are not all about change. Keeping things the same and sustaining what is good is just as important to us. We enjoy working together as friends, and it's important for us to continue to work in a way that enables us to stay connected, creative, and supported. It takes a long time for an art space or project to become established. It certainly takes longer than a year for people to understand what it is and for them to trust it enough to keep showing up. So many art spaces and projects pop up and then disappear as soon as their short-term funding dries up. Rabbits Road Press is still very much a work in progress, but we have managed to keep the press going for 3 years, and it's thanks to a lot of people, some quite specific circumstances, an ecosystem approach, and some answered prayers. Since the press is running using public funding, it's important for us to be clear about what it is that it provides. To do this, we think about the project in terms of give and take. What do we give? We give regular access to the space, equipment, training, which is free to people in Newham. We commission artists to make new work. We pay artists to give lectures. We run a £50 summer school. We run lots of free events, and we give artists cash for their prints every week during open access when we buy work from them for our shop. Well, what do we take? We take money, ideas, a venue, and we take art. We buy art from people who use the printing press. In terms of artists making change, I don't consider myself to be an activist, but I do see the press as being a site and resource which can and does support people who are. DICON makes so much important work advocating for the rights of migrants, refugees, and marginalised people through their events, scenes, and resources. Magpie Project, who support women with young children who are in insecure housing, print their Christmas cards with us and have been commissioned by the press to make a publication. Maslaha, a charity that addresses inequalities faced by Muslim communities, have connected us to local schools to work on socially engaged projects with. We produce some seed packets with parents and some publications with the children. To conclude, I think artists are best placed to help bring about change when they are able to identify how they can contribute to existing efforts and working with a range of people. Often that means avoiding being a big star artist and playing the best supporting role we can.